Hi, everyone, and welcome to Franchise Interviews, where we're asking the entrepreneur who owns one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott, with my co-host, Don Johnson. And if you've ever dreamed about owning your own business, then you've come to the right place. We have a great show today. We're meeting with Jody Olin, CSO and founder of the 10 till 2 franchise opportunity. The 10 till 2 is a part-time placement service specializing in placing college-educated professionals in long-term part-time positions. It's the nation's first staffing service of its kind, and that its sole focus is on part-time placement. That's coming up in segment 2 of Franchise Interviews.
Franchise Interviews. For over 2 years now, Franchise Interviews has been giving you an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship.
Through our website, franchiseinterviews.com, where you can hear and read interviews as well as get tips from some of the most successful sources in franchising.
And our weekly franchise radio show, where each week you get to hear a new interview with franchisors, franchisees, franchise authors, experts, and attorneys.
And our free franchise newsletter, which is a must-read for anyone looking to buy a franchise.
And don't forget to listen to our podcast, Great Quotes in Franchising. For more information, go to franchiseinterviews.com or call us at 610-905-2919.
That's 610-905-2919.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Franchise Interviews, where we're asking the entrepreneur who owns one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott, with my co-host, Don Johnson. And if you've ever dreamed about owning your own business, then you've come to the right place. Don, welcome back to another edition of Franchise Interviews. How's your week going, my friend?
Can't complain, Marty. Doing pretty well. How about yourself?
Good, good. Nice to be back from vacation, from, a little Thanksgiving Day break.
Right, yeah.
It's how was your little vacation, so you can say?
Yes, it's always nice getting a little break, being with family, relatives, and went on a little trip to upstate New York with the kids. Had a good time. So now we're into the holiday season. It's just incredible how we're already at the end of the year.
Oh, it is. It's amazing how it just kind of like snuck up on us. It's
yeah.
But yeah, last week we actually did the show, as I was saying to you, without you, and tell you, Don, it's tough. It's doing the show alone and no guests. So I don't think I'm going to be doing that again. I was dying for a commercial to come up because I was losing my voice 20 minutes into the show. So it's nice to have a co-host and guest during the show. It was a challenge.
Hope you had a lot of water next to you.
I sure did, thank God. But but it's interesting. So what do we have going on today, Don, and over the next?
Yeah, we got a couple nice shows to end the year. Today, Jody Olin, CSO, founder, 10 till 2 franchise. Interesting concept. We'll be hearing all about that shortly.
Right.
Next week, December 11th, Valpak franchise. Known throughout the country. Yeah.
We're constantly, getting, I'm sure you do when you go home, you get once a month the packet from Valpak, and there's always a lot of great offers in there, So.
Oh yeah, good times or bad times. Someone has always been into using coupons, and it's just interesting with the way the economy's going on. This should be a very good time for a company like Valpak.
Oh, absolutely. I really think it's the best time to advertise is when things are slow. It's always amazing how some businesses decide to cut back during these times, which I think is totally the worst thing you can ever do. So
they say they're the nation's leading direct mail. Of course, delivering coupons to more than 45 million houses in the U.S.
That's
pretty impressive. Then December 18th, Marty, Cousins Sub-Franchise.
We both know them.
Yeah, and that'll be to close out the year. And obviously then we have a holidays, a week break, but we'll still be playing some of our shows. Then our first show in the new year, January 7th, meeting with the Superior Wash franchise.
Yeah, it's another interesting new concept.
Yeah, I guess they're a leader in the fleet washing industry, and they service some big-time clients like Coca-Cola, FedEx, UPS, Budweiser.
That's great. Well, it's always fun to have, a new industry on the show, Right. Again, as long as we've been doing it, we just celebrated our 2-year anniversary and 100th show, which,
right.
Do you have any thoughts on that? Did you want to comment on our 100th show?
No.
You don't want to talk about it?
I
thought it went very
it was
well.
Great. Yeah, I had a fun time on the show. Just it was nice kind of going back and remembering all the past shows we did, the people we had on, all the just all the information, and
right.
The reason why we started the show was to really be a source through a different type of outlet like internet radio, but we've just been able to put together such quality shows with quality people talking all about the franchise industry and all the different levels of franchising, and yeah, it's been it's been nice so far. I can't believe 2 years have gone by.
Yeah, it's been a fun ride, and it was nice going back, as you said, and kind of like remembering the highlights from the show, and all the different guests that we've had on the show up
right.
to this point, is just been amazing, and we had a lot of clips from the highlights as well. So if you did miss the show, go back and listen to it. You can go right to franchiseinterviews.com, and it's right there where it says our 100th show, 2-year anniversary, and
right.
it's about an hour and a half, hour and 45-minute show, so
yeah.
It was great, though. Here was something, Don, I just wanted to mention. Speaking of former guests, Jim Cohen, and I think you've actually seen this. DDIFO names acting president. Jim Cohen assumes role as nationwide search begins. So it's December 1st, 2008, Bellingham, Massachusetts. The DD Independent Franchise Owners Group, DD stands for Dunkin' Donuts, which represents the largest association of Dunkin' Donuts franchise owners in the United States, has named Jim Cohen a member of the DDIFO Board of Directors as its acting president and chief operating officer. He takes over December 1st, 2008 from Mark Dubinsky, who has tendered his resignation after 2 years as being the president. Mr. Cohen is executive director of the New England Franchise Association and founder of Franchise Perfection. He has been a director and a clerk for DDIFO board since May of 2008. So, good for Jim. Jim was, again, a guest on our show, and just very, very knowledgeable. And I guess, we can call him a friend to the show as well. So good for him. Maybe we can have him back
right.
In 2009 as well, and talk about Dunkin' Donuts, because I think you and I are both fans of Dunkin' Donuts. I know your kids
right.
are fans of the Munchkins, if I remember correctly.
Right.
So,
Oh, yeah, that's a big thing, yeah.
Yeah, so it would be great to have Jim come back on the show, and talk about his experience. And we'll kind of let him get situated in the job first,
Sure, he's going to do well, but, yeah, we want to hear everything about what's going on with one of the most popular franchises in the country.
Oh, absolutely. They're just taking over Dunkin' Donuts. It just seems like they're all over the place. And I suspect because Starbucks is closing down, I think you heard this, Don, 600 of their cafes. I think this is opportunity for Dunkin' Donuts, So we're just going to have to watch the growth as well.
Definitely.
And we had an interesting article, or actually a couple of them for this week.
Yeah, this one is titled "A Bad Economy May Benefit Franchises" by Mark Siebert. I guess he does some work for Entrepreneur.com. Mm-hmm. Learn what drives franchise sales even in slowing economy. It starts out with all the negativity making headlines these days. It's difficult sometimes to maintain perspective. Foreclosures at record highs, and nearly $1 trillion in bailouts. The Dow with record declines, mass layoffs and unemployment at 5-year highs. That's all pretty depressing stuff. He says
this is supposed to be a positive show.
Says, reading Dickens, it was the best at times, it was the worst at times. The period was so far like the present period, it seems that perhaps he only got it half right. But for franchisors, true words were never spoken. Yes, there are some short-term difficulties that will take time to flush through the system. At the same time, however, there are a number of reasons to anticipate that the best of times are right around the corner. Perhaps the best place to gain this perspective is by understanding what drives franchise sales. Mm-hmm. There are, of course, thousands of factors that drive franchise sales at the micro level: a bad day at the office, an overbearing boss, a difficult co-host on a radio show. Oh,
there you go.
A neighbor's franchise success story and perhaps his new Mercedes, a canceled flight that leads to the missed soccer game. All right. But at the macro level, there are 3 predictable factors that can lead to a surge in franchise sales activity, and many of them are pointing to a franchise boom on the horizon. The first and foremost factor affecting franchise sales is a rising unemployment rate for the fear of losing one's job. Right. At a 6.1%, the unemployment rate has increased by 1.4% in the last 12 months alone, adding 2.2 million people to the ranks of the unemployed.
Wow.
Really incredible,
That is something.
and some economists are predicting that it will hit 7% before it turns around. Well, that news is terrible for the economy, and it sounds callous to even mention it, but that means for franchisors it is a larger pool of franchise candidates.
Mm-hmm.
It says for every 0.1% increase in the unemployment rate adds another 150,000 prospective franchise buyers to the marketplace. As these newly unemployed hit the market, many will, of course, send out resumes and try to network their way into a position. But for many, the sad truth is that they will never be able to replace their past level of income by working for someone else. After a few months of futility, many of these formerly employed will realize that the only way they can hope to match their past salary would be to start a business of their own, and often they will want proven systems and support that franchising provides.
Yeah, no, this is important. I mean, and again, this is something that we've discussed on the show, on several occasions. A lot of things come to my mind when talking about this, Don. The auto industry. I remember when, you watch what's going on in the auto industry right now. I know that there's some franchisors or franchise networks that are aggressively going after the market in, like, Detroit, because there's just so many people available, more people available to now buy a franchise.
Right.
You wonder, too, if people feel burned. You wonder if there was, there's less security now in corporate America, I guess, than there's probably ever been, right? I mean, it's not like when your dad was a pilot, wasn't he? I mean, his job was pretty secure. I mean, he knew that he was probably going to have the rest of his career with that company.
Right. Well, back then, 60s, 70s, into the 80s, there was seniority, and and then there was more loyalty from companies. I think a lot of that changed in the 80s and 90s. Yeah.
And you don't have that today, so, for people to say, well, you know what, I don't want to be an entrepreneur, there's more security in corporate America, I disagree today, I mean, there's not that security there at all. So, again, it's not always the best reason to go into your own business or your own franchise just because you were downsized or let go from your company, but it might be an option for, the thousands of people that it happened to, so...
Yeah.
That's a very interesting point. Talking about the economy, too, I mean, there have been several industries that we've had on the show. God, it's been like the last 3 months, where they've said, you know what, the kind of like a recession is really better for their franchise. I'm thinking of the one that comes to my mind, 1-800, was it Radiator? Right. Remember that gentleman said that, people are keeping their cars longer. Because people are keeping their cars longer, they need more work, they need more maintenance, so they have to replace their radiators, So I said, wow, I never really thought about that. And there's been several scenarios.
Or maybe even today's guest, franchise 10 tool too. You maybe think rough economy, maybe a spouse might want to go out and get some part-time work, or maybe some people have to work while they're finding another job, different scenarios.
I always think that there are. There's pluses and minuses to any situation, It's not all negative and doom and gloom, So, and I think this whole economy thing, I think it's getting rid of a lot of the bad companies that were out there anyway, and the strong ones will hang around and survive, And if you're in a franchise, one of the things that I was mentioning on last week's show is, to trust the franchise. Most franchisors have been through these kind of times before, you know what I mean? So they know what to do.
That's a good point, yeah.
So trust the franchise, as in the words of Jim Rudolph of Rita's franchise.
Yeah. You're thinking of Christmas when you say Rudolph's.
There you go. Hope you're listening to the show.
The article goes on and it talks about mass layoffs come from the country's biggest companies. And it's precisely these companies that are most likely to provide their employees with some type of severance package that can fund their initial venture into business ownership. That's an interesting point. And according to the Bureau of Labor statistics, September mass layoffs alone added over 200,000 to the unemployment rolls, and that's the most since September of 2001.
Interesting.
So, and it says if these trends continue, there may be another 1 million prospective franchisees entering the market before things get better on the unemployment front.
Right.
Even those employees that are left behind are more likely to jump ship or plan in their future because these near layoffs, I guess people who sense maybe this is interesting too, just not people laid off, but people who sense that their job is not safe or they may get laid off might also, possibly become people that might eventually be self-employed who want to invest in a franchise. So that's the first point. The second major factor affecting franchise sales is the stock market. Again, bad news for the economy can be good news for franchisors. During the days of the internet bubble, franchise salespeople often found it difficult to pry people's money out of the pocket, and with good reason. Many investors, seeing spectacular, if speculative returns in the market, figured, and what goes up must keep going up forever mentality, that all they had to do was hold on to their shares of Amazon, for example, and they can retire millionaires in a few months. When the bubble burst, the money flew out of the market, and in many instances into franchises. Today's market has seen similar flights to cash. Many investors have already fled the market, and there may be more to come. Those sitting on the sidelines will soon realize they need to put their capital to work. But given the wild gyrations of the stock market and the fear that has driven many away, it seems unlikely that many investors will be jumping back into stocks anytime soon. Again, franchises and small business ownership offer a potentially high return alternative. And then the third driver of franchise sales is credit availability. This is where the current news isn't very positive. The combination of reduced home values, reduced equity, and decreased credit availability has forced some buyers to consider less expensive franchises and has driven some out of the market entirely. But even this bad news is not disastrous, at least for some franchisors. Franchise prospects, Marty, that once looked at million-dollar investments are still looking for franchises, only they now be looking at investments in the $500,000 range. While franchisors with investments in the $1 million range plus are feeling the pinch, this push-down effect is helping to offset the credit crunch for franchisors with smaller investments. So that's interesting. And, you know, we, of course, know a lot of different franchise consultants around the country. And, you know, a lot of them, I think, across the board are maybe seeing people investing in lower-size investment franchises.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a great article.
Yeah, well, I'm not done yet.
Okay.
Let's see here. It says credit's tighter, but deals are still getting done. Today's lenders are looking for a better quality borrower. I mean, this is my business. A couple of years ago, lenders would be happy to consider borrowers with credit scores of 620. Not really true, but it's true that you know, lenders are being a little more careful with people's credit score. We're looking for 680 or higher.
Right.
The national average for a credit score is 692. So anybody that's 700 or higher is you know, pretty solid. Today's lenders are looking for 30% equity or down payment. You know, we've seen that. People, you know, lenders wanting a little higher injection or down payment. Again, several years ago, franchisees could purchase franchises with a little 10% of the equity needed. Banks are also looking more closely at things like non-business collateral, the experience of the franchisee, and whether the household will have a secondary income during the business startup. That's all the stuff we do when we're pre-qualifying people for financing. It says, even this bad news has a silver lining. First, it means that franchisees qualifying for credit today are less likely to be at risk if their business performs below expectation as it builds customer base. Second, credit crunches are typically short-term events. In the last year, the Federal Reserve has lowered fund rates from 5.25 to 1%. And that's what's nice about what's going on, Marty. These are the best rates for people getting business loans in the last 4 to 5 years.
Absolutely. Well, this is your life right now.
Right. Yeah. So, and just ending this article says perhaps equally relevant, the tide is likely to turn much more quickly relevant to credit than it will for either employment or for renewed confidence in the stock market. Add a dash of pent-up demand, and when this happens, the economy will be poised for a franchise explosion. When this might happen is impossible to say, but savvy franchisors are planning now to capitalize on it. So it's a pretty interesting article overall, that even though it's a rough economy, rough market out there, people getting laid off, the stock market all over the place, credit tight, that can all help franchising.
Sure, absolutely. That's interesting. And who wrote that article, Tom? Was that Mark Siebert?
Yeah.
And I think we've referred to him in the past, too. He's written some fantastic articles
on
the topic of franchising.
He's the Franchising Your Business coach at entrepreneur.com.
Okay, good. All right, good. Well, why don't we take a quick break here? We'll be right back with more franchise interviews in a moment.
Franchise Interviews. For over 2 years now, Franchise Interviews has been giving you an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship.
Through our website, franchiseinterviews.com, where you can hear and read interviews as well as get tips from some of the most successful sources in franchising.
And our weekly franchise radio show, where each week you get to hear a new interview with franchisors, franchisees, franchise authors, experts, and attorneys.
And our free franchise newsletter, which is a must-read for anyone looking to buy a franchise.
And don't forget to listen to our podcast, Great Quotes in Franchising. For more information, go to franchiseinterviews.com or call us at 610-905-2919.
That's 610-905-2919.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Franchise Interviews, where we're asking the franchise ones. I'm your host, Marty McDermott, and my co-host, Don Johnson. If you've ever dreamed of owning your own business, then you've come to the right place. Well, as we were saying earlier, Don, we have a great show today. We're meeting with Jody Olin, who is a CSO and founder of the 10 Till 2 franchise opportunity. And 10 Till 2 is a part-time placement service specializing in placing college-educated professionals in long-term part-time positions. It's the nation's first staffing service of its kind, in that its sole focus is on part-time placement. Hey, Jody, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning.
How are you doing today, Jody?
Oh, I'm fine. Thanks very much.
Good, good. Jody, joining us is my co-host, Don Johnson, and I know, Don, you wanted to say good morning to Jody.
Yes, good morning to Jody. Hey, Jody, happy holidays. How are you?
Thank you. Yes, I'm good. I'm calling from Denver, Colorado, where we're in the midst of our first snowstorm.
Oh, really? Wow. Well, I think, it's interesting, Jody, because Don and I have declared Denver the franchise capital of the United States. I think we've had more guests, Don, would you say, from the Denver area?
Yeah, definitely. I'm not sure what the number is, but, yeah, so many franchises based out of Denver. I guess it's a good area to have your business, Jody.
Well, it's interesting. I've heard that also, and I'm involved in an organization of franchisors here, and it seems that it is a hotbed of ideas.
That's fantastic. That's something. Jody, I've had a chance to look at your biography, and it's very, very impressive. What were you doing before starting 10 Till 2? You're one of the founders of the company.
I am, and my background has been in sales. I have sold in a couple of different industries. I have a degree in fashion buying, merchandising, and advertising, but really sales has been my forte.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I saw you also attended FIT, which is on...
I did, a native New Yorker.
That's fantastic. That's great.
Yeah, that's where we're based out of, Jody. I'm here in New Jersey, not too far from New York City. Marty's from New Jersey, just over the border in PA, so I guess you're from our neck of the woods.
That's exactly right.
What were you doing, Jody, before joining 10 Till 2? You mentioned you were in sales background. Was this the first time you were in franchising when the franchise came up, or you had a little bit of a background in that?
No, actually I didn't. We came up with an idea here in Denver. We opened a small staffing business, and we wound up getting a tremendous amount of media attention because the part-time placement service is really a very unique niche. And we really opened our franchise system upon the demand we heard from around the nation as our media coverage got picked up nationally. So we really hadn't intended to open a franchising organization when we first started 10 Till 2. It was only after people started calling and emailing from all over the U.S. saying, boy, 10 Till 2 is a great idea. It's very needed. When are you going to bring it to my city?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's incredible. I love hearing stories like that on how something like that happened. Just something by chance, and you realize that maybe you're onto something here.
Right. It's exactly how we started, and it's been a very exciting turn of events for us.
Yeah, even the name of the company, Jody, whoever came up with that, I just thought it was just very creative. It just says exactly what you guys do almost,
Well, that's very funny. I had the idea of a 10 Till 2-like business many years ago. While I was working in sales for another company, I watched so many of my college-educated compadres leave the workforce because of family obligations.
Right.
And so I thought of the concept, and of course, was busy with my day-to-day world and would never have executed it until I met my business partner, Jill, at a social function, and just politely asked if she worked outside the home. And she said, no, but I'm starting a business called 10 Till 2. And I'm telling you, my eyes lit up. And I said, oh, my gosh, I want in. And she said, well, let me explain what it means. And I said, no, you don't have to. I get it.
Wow. Yeah, it's like
and then everything began. So maybe talk about a little bit of the history and what happened since then.
Well, Al, we started our business about 5 years ago here in Denver. We really intended to start a small staffing firm that really intended to provide business with highly professional employees that really weren't available to other businesses because they're not out there looking for a job. And we knew that the business community would like what we had to offer. And we knew that we could find the candidate pool because we knew so many people in the situation wanting to work but knowing they couldn't work 40, 50, 60 hours a week.
Right.
So we started our business, and it really took off virtually immediately, and we were humming along. And as I said, we got a lot of media attention in the Denver area, and all of that attention went national. We had demand from around the country to bring 10 Till 2 to other states. And we knew nothing about franchising, so we hired what we called our franchising guru, and he had taken a number of other systems to the franchise world, and he taught us really all of the ropes of what we would need to do, what the pitfalls we would encounter, how we would get it off the ground. He helped us write our first UFOC, and we sold our very first franchise just over 2 years ago to a client who saw the benefit of what we had to offer. And we now have 25 units in 11 states. We are woman-owned. All of the partnership are women, and we are walking. We're growing, but growing very cautiously. Our goals are to continue to grow, maybe 15, 20 units per year, and make sure that we have the infrastructure in place to support our franchisees.
Fantastic.
And it seems like the type of business where you can, I guess, really, depending on population in certain states, but really someone can have a nice size area, but really in a small area. It just seems like there's a lot of growth to really have hundreds of units nationwide as a minimum.
Absolutely. We base our territories by zip codes. We look at business populations in those zip codes. We provide each of our franchisees with no fewer than 10,000 small businesses. Our clients are really smaller businesses, not necessarily the giants of the world. Right. So everybody gets zip code protected territories. And yes, we expect there will be hundreds around the country as we continue to grow.
And I guess 10 to 2, probably thrives when it's kind of a turbulent economy like what's going on right now. I guess in good times or bad times, it's a nice niche service, but this is probably better for the company, right?
That's a great observation. Yes, businesses that are looking to stay afloat but really needing to tweak every dollar carefully can tap into our database of right now over 20,000 candidates in the U.S., all college educated, all very, very highly qualified, and they can get the job done with only having to pay for the hours that they need somebody in that seat. They don't need to have any extra bodies floating around. Right. So we started in Denver in a downturned market. When we started 5 years ago, Denver was not booming, and so we know for a fact that we are a very good option in a less robust economy.
True.
So when you're describing, Jody, 10 till 2 to say a prospect, really, how do you describe the system to a prospect? I guess kind of what you just said.
Well, it's really very simple. We have a comprehensive training program. Any new franchisee will spend a week here in the Denver area at our headquarters. and we really put them through all of the details that they would need to know. We have a support system in place so that there's always support for any unit with a question. We create the advertising campaigns and help with all of the marketing materials that a franchisee would need. So what we really are looking for is somebody who's going to come in with sales skills. You have to be able to go and talk about it and network and meet people and introduce them to the concept. But it's a very duplicatable system.
Interesting. And which is interesting too, Jody, it looks like it's what I liked about your service is that it looks like it's a 6-month commitment. It's long term. I always remember my mom working temporary jobs as a kid, and she'd always like do a week here and 2 weeks someplace else. And, I think it's nice to have that long-term commitment. I think it's a nice niche that you guys have.
Yeah, and we really looked at that very carefully because, again, the candidate pool that we're dealing with here isn't really a candidate pool that is interested in a traditional temp service. Mm-hmm. They don't want to hop around. They don't want to have to go to a different locale every single day. Right. Ideally, they want to go into a business and they want to offer that business their skills and their expertise in a particular area, but they just don't want to do it 40 hours a week.
Right, absolutely. And no weekends or nights or anything like that either.
Exactly. Any of us who have kids understand that our society these days puts a lot of pressure on parents to be active in the schools and be taking our kids to soccer practices and shuttling them, and it's very, very hard to do when you're working 40 hours a week, let alone 50 hours a week.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, good point. Do your franchisees, Jody, also just work 10 till 2?
They don't, and that's something that's very important to understand. They are buying a business, and when you buy a business, you need to be focused and dedicated to take that business from, potentially never having been heard of in your market to a viable entity, and that's hard work. And anyone who tells you otherwise with any business, in my opinion, isn't necessarily telling you the truth.
Absolutely.
That's something Marty and I always stress on our show. We've been doing for a couple of years that sometimes there's misconception about a franchise. You don't have to work as hard, run on its own, but it's really not the case. It's just like any other business. Got to work just as hard, but quicker to success, a lot lower chance of failure because of the support and training and everything that your company would do. So.
Exactly. I mean, that's exactly it. But if you're going to open a business, it takes blood, sweat, and tears. It takes focus and commitment. So we that is something that we very much stress when we meet any potential franchisee is, despite the name and despite what you might like to hear, this is a full-time job. And it's a fun full-time job. It's a flexible full-time job. It's a full-time job that all of our franchisees have started from their homes. But nonetheless, it is a full-time job.
Absolutely. One of the questions we've recently started asking on our show, Jody, is what role has technology played in your business?
It's a great question, and I love answering that question. Technology is everything to our business. One of the reasons that this is such a duplicatable system and such a system that is so easy for us to take out to other locales is everything we have done is internet-based. We designed a proprietary database to house our candidate pool. Our candidates log into our website and can apply online from anywhere. And our franchisees have access to that data from anywhere they are, which means that the business can be based from your home. You can access the data pool as you're running a carpool if you have to. But everything we do from the database to our whole payroll system is online. 10 till 2, part of our agreement with our franchisees is that we actually fund the payroll, the weekly payroll for our franchisees. And so all of the candidates that they put on payroll are going to go in online, log their hours in. We receive those hours online. We invoice the clients, and we pay all candidates. And again, that's all done because of technology.
And that's great. It leaves the franchisee to just concentrate on growing the business, sales. Don't have to worry about,
That's exactly right. When we started to think about franchising, we really looked at each other and said, what is our franchisee going to look like? And we determined they were going to be very much like we. We are three parents, and we don't necessarily have the deepest pockets in the world. And we realized that we needed to be able to fund that payroll for the entire system, so that our franchisees, all they have to worry about is the initial investment and then the commitment to growing their business. We would take care of the back-end stuff.
Yeah, great idea.
How big is the industry, Jody? I know this is an exciting industry. I think Entrepreneur actually put you guys back on the list, didn't they, as far as like growing industries?
Yes. The staffing industry nationwide is $91 billion in sales. We look at that as a piece of our pie, but we also look at the small business population, and the small business population is also in the billions in the U.S. But 2.96 million people per day are employed by staffing companies. So we're in an industry that is in a growth mode. It is a very viable industry. And what's really fun for us is that we are members of the American Staffing Association. All of our franchisees then by default become members. We attend the annual convention every year, and it never fails to make us so happy to hear other agencies look at us and say, oh, my God, that's a great idea. Why didn't we think of that?
That's what I said. Absolutely.
And do most, your typical staffing company, I guess, sometimes can they refer business to a 10 tool too? If that's not their niche and specialty, most staffing companies would do that also.
It's, again, great question. And yes, the answer is many staffing companies have no ability and no interest and no focus on part-time work. So we have relationships with staffing agencies throughout the country that do say to clients, boy, if you really want a part-time accountant, you really should check with Tental too. That's what they do. And they also refer candidates to us. And vice versa, of course. We've established relationships so that we do help feed them jobs that we know we don't have the candidate pool to fill.
It's interesting, and you're right, Jody. I do ask great questions.
Yes, you do.
And Marty, remember we had on Navis Pack and Ship?
Yes, yeah.
How they would get business from who I thought was, some of their competition, but their specialty in large bulk items,
that's what I was thinking,
expensive items. That kind of just reminded me just what Jody said.
Oh, absolutely. That's a good point.
Yeah, when I wind up at networking events, I often chat with other staffing firms, and they are always intrigued by what we do, and we, I spend a great deal of time making sure that we nurture those relationships so that they don't feel that we're threatening to them. We don't want their business. That isn't what our candidate pool is interested in.
It's just like in my business, Jody. I do nationwide franchise financing, and a lot of our lenders we use, if it doesn't fit their box, a type of loan that they can't do, whether it's too low a loan size or an industry they don't like or whatever, they'll refer it to us. So it's always interesting getting business from, the same industry you're in.
Right. Well, and again, I always feel good about that. It's the same way that I felt great when our first franchise sale was a client. Obviously, we had done a good enough job with this client to not only provide them with an employee that worked, but to say, wow, this is a great model. I like the way you work. Let's talk about me doing this also. When you can establish those kind of relationships, I feel that anyone who can do that is doing a good job at what they're doing.
Right. Yeah, good point. What's been the most interesting thing that's happened to you since starting Tental 2?
I have two teenage daughters, and I think the most interesting and exciting thing for me is to hear them talk about what their mom has done. I was an employee, I was in sales, I have always worked throughout their lives, but for me to have taken a concept that didn't exist in the past, turn it into a business, be interviewed on national television, be in a number of publications, Good Housekeeping and Entrepreneur, hearing my kids talk about what my business is and describing, when I hear them talking about it, nothing in the world is better than that to me.
Wow, yeah, great answer. That usually stumps a lot of people we've asked over the couple of years, right, Marty?
Sure does. I mean, it's interesting. Did you picture yourself doing something like this, Jody? I mean, if you go back 20, 30 years ago, I mean,
being an entrepreneur.
Being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
My gosh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. This was so not in my cards.
Yeah.
And it really it's so invigorating, and I love working with our franchisees, and nothing makes me happier than hearing, having a franchisee call and talk to me about their most recent success or a challenging client that they were able to handle, and see this company growing and maturing, and just it's just all so exciting to us.
That's fantastic.
Right, and with that passion and excitement, obviously it's going to rub off in building the company, and when new franchisees or prospects come along, and you mentioned before, Jody, about a person needing to really have that work ethic, and it's not going to be easy starting up a business. What other types of characteristics do you look for in a franchisee?
Well, it's an interesting thing because everybody always talks about franchisees using the word entrepreneurial, and although anyone who starts a business, without a doubt, has to have an entrepreneurial spirit, there also has to be an understanding in the franchising world of following a system. So there's a slight dichotomy between entrepreneurial and wanting somebody else to have gone through the pain of creating what the job is going to be. We've gone through the pain. We've trust me when I tell you we know all the bumps in the road.
Yeah.
We're really good at figuring those out. So what we look for is that entrepreneurial spirit, that person who is passionate about the idea, wants to get out and tell everybody they meet about 10 Till 2 and why we exist and why we can be such a value in the community. But also, we really want somebody who appreciates the fact that we have created this system, and in order to maintain their value of their 10 Till 2 business, they need to follow the brand.
Right.
And I can't imagine that any other franchisee that you talk to, any other franchisor that you talk to, feels much different about what they need with that regard. So, specific to 10 Till 2 is the idea of wanting to help women get back into the workforce, help business maximize their payroll dollars and understand, what they can get from 10 Till 2. We believe very much in public speaking and getting out into the community and talking about the changing workforce. We see that the boomers retiring and Generation X and Generation Y coming in is a pretty dramatic shift in what's going to happen to the workforce in this country. And we believe that the more we can get out and talk about it, the more businesses are going to understand that flexibility is going to happen. And so they're going to need to get on with that program sooner or later.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
I know you're involved in the training too, Jody. What is the training like for your new franchisees?
Everything from showing them how to spend use the database most effectively, to understanding the online payroll system, so the true nuts and bolts of the back end of the business. But we also spend a great deal of time role-playing and just talking about the value of 10 Till 2 and how to offer that value proposition to your potential clients. Because most people that we have bring in as franchisees have not been in recruiting or staffing in the past, and just making sure that they create that elevator pitch, understand how to best describe the concept in their words.
Right.
So it's fun. We try to make it fun. We actually always go and attend a networking event, so that after we've done our role playing and our learning how to speak the 10 Till 2 speak, we make them go out in public and do it.
Right.
That's always a little intimidating.
Sure.
But these are, once they're done with our training, they're going to go back to their city, and they're going to need to be able to represent our brand the way we would like it represented. And so we want to make sure that they're not going to get hit with any questions that they haven't already covered and can answer.
That's great. What is a typical day like, Jody, for your franchisees?
That's also a fun part of our business is their typical day can be very varied. And I don't know about you, but I really enjoy knowing that, today I can do one thing and tomorrow I might have something I can do, and it isn't terribly repetitive. But we do encourage our franchisees to get involved in chambers and network, and so networking events is definitely going to be a part of their week. They will be spending time going out and meeting clients and talking with clients. They spend time in the database using the technology that we've created to match the job requirement with the skill sets of potential employees. Talking to those potential employees and doing pre-qualification interviews. We do try to make sure that all of our franchisees know how to conduct a quality interview, because every time they talk to a potential candidate, they're really doing a solid interview. That's one thing we offer our clients, is that pre-screening. And then by federal law, when someone does go onto our payroll, we do need to meet them in person. So they might be meeting a new hire for the I-9 verification and sign up. So really every day is a little different. There's no question that there are some days that we're going to suggest that our franchisees, if they don't have enough on their plate, they don't have enough open jobs, the dreaded cold calling, or somehow client searching out new clients definitely has to happen, because that's how you grow your business. I must say, however, that a huge chunk of our business is repeat business. So once you've established a decent business core, we find that we get a lot of clients coming back to us for second, third, fourth employees.
That's fantastic.
That's always a great element of any business, having that touch to it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Jody, what are you doing to get the word out nationally about 10 to 2? You doing any of the franchise trade shows, or?
We haven't yet. I expect that I'm going to have to start doing that. We have been so lucky, again, that with the press, that we've really had a lot of people respond to us.
Yeah.
And so we have not done a lot of the trade shows. We have not yet worked with any franchise brokers. And that's something that's in the cards for this coming year. I was listening to your previous guest talking about franchise sales being slightly off, but boy, I expect to see that boom very shortly as people become disenchanted with the man paying their paycheck. They look at franchising as an option for getting out from under the man.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's interesting. What so far you've given just great advice on a lot of things. But any other advice you'd give to an aspiring entrepreneur looking to buy a franchise, Jody?
Do your homework. Understand what you're getting into. Understand the parameters of the business, and make sure that you really like and feel passionate about what you're doing. Because there's so many hours in a day, and those hours can be drudgery or they can be fun. I would so much rather be working with people that are feeling that every day everything they're doing is fun, and that they're there because they really enjoy the idea and want to see it succeed. Makes life so much happier.
Absolutely, I agree.
Maybe talk a little bit about the investment size for someone opening up a 10 till 2 franchise and so forth.
Yeah, we're not a terribly expensive system. Our initial purchase price is $25,000. The $25,000 includes your training, your opening marketing materials, the technology. We do have an annual fee of $1,500 for technology. So each year that gets billed to our franchisees. We charge a 5% royalty, and we also do charge a 5% service fee, and that service fee is what covers the ability for Tental 2 Corporate to handle all of those payroll functions. And so that's a question I get a lot with initial franchisees is, what's that extra 5%? And then I would say that if you were to poll any of my current franchisees, they would say that's the best money they ever spent.
Right. Yeah. I mean, in general, it's, the royalty fees and, successful franchise is very well worth it. I mean, you always want to be paying lots of royalty fees. It means you're having more sales and making more money.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
So there is also a 0.5% national advertising fee from any first initial opening franchise that does grow with time. It doesn't grow again until the 13th month. But as our franchisees mature, we do want to have money available to continue to support the marketing, advertising, and public relations functions. And so that's a modest number to start and grows as their franchise grows. Again, and you don't have any build-out, you don't have any cost of rent. Any franchisee is welcome to open their office from their home. We have very, very modest requirements with regard to space and equipment for opening the franchise. But we do see that at some point in time with growth, as they need to put on additional people, there may be need to move out of their home-based office. I don't believe at this time any of my franchisees have moved out of their home-based offices yet.
But that's great, just having that low startup cost, having less pressure on the new franchisee working out of their home to build their business, just one less thing to worry about. I think that's a nice, feature, Tental 2.
Right, and we really, again, are trying to keep the cost modest so that we can have someone who might not have ever thought they could own their own business get into this business.
Right.
Again, it's that thought of what's this franchisee going to look like. So you don't have to be a multimillionaire to invest in a Tental 2 business. You just have to be passionate about the idea and be willing to work hard to make it grow.
Yeah, and that was going to be a follow-up question I had about, you want people to have entrepreneurial spirit, but really no past business experience or business ownership experience. It just seems like anyone with the right attitude wants to follow the system can be successful with Tental 2.
Yes, although I must say that I have I've realized how important comfort with sales is in our business.
Right.
Someone who can't get out there and be put out their hand and introduce themselves at a networking event or get up in front of an audience and talk about Tental 2 is going to have a hard time getting the concept known in their market.
Have to be a people person, have to be comfortable, have to,
right.
Exactly. That's a good point, yeah.
Exactly. So really, we've had people from corporate training as franchisees. We seem to have a plethora of corporate trainers, and also we've had people in our industry, which is really gives them a strong background in terms of some of the staffing issues. Certainly not critical.
Right.
And also we have people from pharmaceutical sales. It seems that we've got a couple of our stellar performers are pharmaceutical sales.
That's interesting. That makes sense, I guess. Yeah.
What are Tental 2 plans for the future, Jody?
Well, we've recently moved into new corporate headquarters in the Denver area. So we're poised to grow. We've recently hired our first franchisee support person. So this person is now available to be traveling throughout the country for any needs that our franchisees may have. So we are poised to grow. Again, we're looking to grow 20, 30 units in the next year and take Tental 2 into more markets than we are currently in.
That's fantastic. What's the best way for our listeners to get more information on the Tental 2 franchise opportunity, Jody?
Again, that technology, come to our website. And our website is www.tentil2.com, and that's spelled out TENTILTWO.com.
Fantastic. We're also going to post it up on our show page as well, Jody. You've been a fantastic guest.
Thank you for having me. I've really appreciated it.
Thanks, Jody. Have a great day today.
Okay, you too.
Good work, Jody. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Great show, huh, Don?
Yeah. She talked about people having the right spirit, the passion to be a franchisee, and obviously she has a lot of passion for the business as she's growing. Very interesting, very niche.
She was a wonderful guest.
Yeah.
I'd like to have her back in 2009 and just watch the growth of this franchise.
Definitely.
All right, well, great show, Don. And I guess next week we'll be meeting with Valpak, won't we?
Yep. Looking forward to that. Good job yourself, Marty, and you have a good day.
You too, Don. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.